If you are interviewing for a job and you see any of these red flags, you need to be very cautious before accepting that job offer. Nobody wants to walk into a new job being all excited and then realizing that you were bamboozled and that your job actually isn't going to be that great at all. Because trying to leave a job so quickly after joining can always be kind of awkward and difficult. You don't want to burn any bridges from the company that you're at, and other companies are going to be very suspicious as to why you are leaving a company so soon. So if you see any of these red flags, you need to really ask yourself if this is truly the right opportunity for you, and you should probably do more digging. And before we get into the video, if you want more career tips just like this, make sure you click subscribe down below and comment what other videos you want us to make. So the first red flag that may come up in a job interview is if you find out that quite a few people are leaving the company or this particular team and manager. Don't be afraid to ask the recruiter or the hiring manager why this job is open. If they tell you that the role is open because they're growing, then that's obviously very good. But if they tell you it's a backfill, you may want to do your research and understand why someone had left this role before. You can also do some LinkedIn digging to see how long this role has been open and if it's been posted multiple times before. The second red flag to be aware of is if you're not getting a good sense of the company's overall direction and strategy for the future. If the hiring manager or the team have a very difficult time answering questions around the future of the company or the product or the organization, you may be wary of that. You want to make sure that the people you're working for actually have a strong vision and idea of where they are going. If they are kind of making things up on the fly, you can probably assume that your role will be pretty chaotic when you start. The third thing to be thinking about is if you are interviewing and you're noticing that quite a few people seem unhappy or not very energetic or not too excited to be interviewing you or to be working at that company, you're going to want to take note of that. Keep in mind, when someone is going to be interviewing you, they're trying to also sell you on the role so you accept their job offer. So if they're already coming in with low energy and they're not very excited and they don't seem happy to be at work, and this is when they're supposed to be selling you about it, can you imagine how bad it would be when you actually start? Remember, people can always use words to tell you that it's exciting and don't worry about it, come on in, it's going to be fine. But you should really try to read into the tone of their voice and try and gauge their overall energy level, because that's a little bit harder to fake. The fourth red flag is if you don't get to meet or talk to your manager before you start, or worse yet, if you don't even know who your manager is going to be. Keep in mind that your manager has the biggest influence on your happiness at work, also your career progression and growth. The company culture is one thing and the role and the responsibilities is another, but none of that really matters if you work for a horrible boss. So try to feel out if this manager and you have good chemistry and if it's a good fit. And most importantly, do you feel like this manager genuinely cares about their people and will invest in you and your career in the long run? If you're not getting that sense, then that's definitely a red flag. Another thing to be cautious of is if you're interviewing and you start to get asked biased or illegal interview questions. Illegal topics to cover in an interview are anything related to age, gender, religion, or family. For example, if they ask you, "Are you planning on starting a family soon?" This is definitely not a question that they are allowed to ask you, and you need to take note of this and flag this to someone in their HR department. But you also need to be cognizant of if they're asking you only biased questions. Now, biased questions generally come in the form of experience-based questions. So if they're only asking you if you have done specific things or have been in specific scenarios, you need to be cautious of that, because a good company or a good hiring manager would also ask hypothetical questions in order to test your true knowledge of a specific skill set. If all the questions you're being asked in your interviews are purely behavioral and experience-based, that could be a red flag. Now, another really big red flag is if they are making future promises to you about your scope of work or your pay. If they are trying to sell you on this idea that things will get better for you in the future, or they will promise you things or give you things in the future after you join, you should be very cautious of this because, number one, it's very hard to get these things in writing, so they can't really promise you anything. And also, number two, there is a high chance that they're probably not going to give you these things. They're only saying it so you accept their job offer and come and work there temporarily. And then they'll probably backfill you when they tell you that they couldn't live up to your promises. I've seen this all the time, and it is a pretty crummy marketing tactic to get people to accept a job offer. And the last red flag that you need to be aware of is if they don't give you any time to ask them questions at the end of your interviews. It would basically show that they don't really care about your level of interest, and they don't care about sharing about things that are going on in their team and their company. Maybe they're even hiding something from you. You should want to work for a company that cares about you and wants to make sure that they have given you a true, transparent process and have answered all of your questions honestly about your future job. Alright, so now you know about some very huge red flags that you need to be aware of when you are doing an interview. If you see multiple flags just like these, I probably would suggest against accepting that job offer, even if they are going to offer you a huge pay raise. Thank you all for watching. Comment down below what other topics you want me to cover in future videos, and drop a like if this was really helpful so I'll know and get some feedback on what I can do better. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.